Hello and welcome to what's going to be the first episode in a mini-series all about protein. Episode 1, we're going to be talking about how much protein do you actually need. Let's jump into it. Okay, quick overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the RDA, the recommended daily allowance, and why it's wrong-ish. We're going to talk about what protein actually does, like what it's made up of, what it's used for, what the science recommends, who needs more than the RDA and why, and some practical targets that you can use from today going forwards. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a registered dietitian, I am a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. If you need to get specific guidance in relation to your diet, particularly for medical conditions, you need to talk to a doctor or someone who's qualified to do so. Okay. What is the RDA? So this is the number that you might have heard, which is 0.8 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And it was set by the Institute of Medicine in 2005 and has actually been used before that as well. And it's used in government like dietary guidelines. What it actually means is it's designed to prevent nitrogen deficiency in sedentary adults. And that it should meet close to about 98% of the population minimum level. This is a minimum, so this is the key takeaway. It's not a target, this is like the minimum that you can get away with and not have a deficiency. So that's kind of like the key takeaway here. Okay, so here's the problem with it. It's mostly based on studies from the 70s and 80s, and these methods systematically underestimate true protein needs. And there are a couple of things it doesn't take into account. It doesn't take into account people who are specifically trying to build more muscle mass. So people who are resistance training, sports training, this kind of thing. It doesn't take into account the requirements of aging. As you start to age, your protein requirements actually go up, not down. And body composition I've already touched on. So muscle protein synthesis, or MPS, and anabolic signaling. So this is specific to people who want to build more muscle mass through a combination of diet and resistance training, so weights or machines. You need to have more than the recommended daily allowance in order to support that goal. We'll cover how much you should actually have shortly. Satiety, so protein is the most filling of the macronutrients. What this means is if you're to have, let's say, 200 calories worth of carbohydrates, 200 calories worth of fat, 200 calories worth of protein. Protein is the one that's going to keep you feeling fuller for longer. So particularly for people who are trying to lose weight, that's something to bear in mind as well. And like I say, anyone who kind of exercises or is over the age of 40-ish, which I am, we need more protein. Going to cover 3 quick myths. These do crop up fairly regularly, both online and offline. So the first one we've kind of already busted, and that is the RDA is all you need to be healthy. As I said, it prevents deficiency, but it's not designed to optimize muscle retention, satiety, or fat loss, or healthy aging for that matter. High protein damages your kidneys. So this is something that has been thrown around for a little while and it still surfaces online. For the amounts that we are talking about, having more than the RDA, there is no evidence that it will damage your kidneys. So that is a myth, effectively. And in fact, there are lots of studies that confirm safety up to like 3 grams per kilo per day in healthy adults, and no kind of like issues were found. This is a good one. Plant protein is useless for building muscle. Not true. There's a little bit of nuance to this, and we're going to get into this more in future episodes. I'm going to have an episode specifically for people who are on vegan or vegetarian diets. It's a little bit more complicated. So proteins are made up of amino acids. There are 20 amino acids, of which 9 are essential. Most protein that comes from animals is a complete protein. It has all 9. Plant-based typically is not. So you just have to mix and match the sources of your plant-based protein to get all 9 essential amino acids. But provided you do that and you get sufficient intake of protein, there is no reason why you can't build muscle on a plant-based diet. Okay, so here are some numbers that might be useful for you if you're looking to build muscle mass. So the range of protein intake per day for active adults that are seeking to build muscle is 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So you've got a bit of a range there. There's a meta-analysis here which shows that muscle protein synthesis tended to kind of like plateau out about 1.6-ish. And they also found that there was no massive benefit of going beyond 2.2 for most adults. The range does vary, and there are a couple of different factors to bear in mind for this. Training volume and intensity. So if you have much higher training volume, you're probably going to have slightly higher needs of protein intake and caloric intake. So as you're in a caloric deficit, if you're losing weight, the amount of protein that you require actually goes up, not down, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but it's worth bearing in mind. And this is because you want to have your body fight against using muscle mass as an energy source. And to help support that, you want to make sure you're taking on sufficient protein, higher up that range towards the 2.2 grams-ish kind of area. And age. As I said earlier, people who are kind of over 40-ish are going to need a little bit more protein as they age to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis. Okay, so laying it out in a kind of table format here. So general health, sedentary adult, kind of 1.2-ish upwards is fine. If you are looking to build muscle mass specifically, then it's the range we spoke about before, which is 1.6 to 2.2-ish. And if you are in a cutting phase, you're in a caloric deficit, then you need to be right up towards the top end of that scale. So yeah, 2-ish, 2.4, sort of splitting hairs a little bit here, but towards the top of that range. So key takeaways. Recommended daily allowance is a minimum, it's not target. Evidence does support that range of 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilo of body weight for active adults. High protein, as in within these ranges that we're talking about, is perfectly safe and healthy for adults. And needs are higher if you are in a caloric deficit or if you're kind of in the 40 plus age range or training particularly hard. So some things you can take as actions here. Work out what your body weight is in kilos, multiply that by your target range, and then spread it out across the meals in your day. So it's less effective to try and cram all your protein intake into like 1 or 2 meals. You want to spread it out to kind of 3 or 4, so you have sort of continuing spikes of muscle protein synthesis throughout the day. Next episode, we're going to cover why the source of the protein itself matters. I'm going to dig into a little bit more detail about amino acids, those kind of like subcomponents that make up protein. And we're also going to talk about one of them in particular, which is called leucine. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please follow along, and we'll be digging into more details about protein over the coming probably weeks and maybe even months.